Hello, today is Tuesday, November 10th, 2015, and I am your host, Sue Brown, and welcome to info2rail, your freight train to modern media. How y'all doing today? You know what? My daughter brought it up to my attention the other day, that when I talk to you guys, I always say, how y'all, like I'm a southern country bumpkin. Well, I guess I'm a country girl, and it's just how it is. I want to welcome you all to our show, and we have a great show in store for you today. We're very fortunate to have magician and researcher of the unexplained, William J. Hall, with us today. That, I think, is going to be an amazing interview. First, we're going to have a little glimpse into our missing person files, as we always do. We have a missing Ohio girl. An endangered child advisory has been issued. Alexis Marie Boroviak, Boroviak, age 15, of Brooklyn, Ohio, was last seen Sunday, November 8th, 2015, at about 9:30 p.m., leaving her house to tie the family dog in the backyard. Police believe Alexis may be in danger. Alexis is 5'3". She weighs 156 pounds. She has light brown hair and brown eyes. She was last seen wearing lavender pajama pants, a black hooded sweatshirt, gray Nike shoes, and glasses. She may walk with a limp from a past knee injury. Come on, guys. Anyone with any information on her location, let's get her back here safe. Please contact Brooklyn Police Department at 216-749-1234. You know, as I tell you guys every time I do an interview, it's very important. You know, this is something I'm very passionate about as a human being. This is something that's a personal thing of Sue Brown that I'm very passionate about, is getting these cases out to you guys. If we can bring these people home safe, or at least closure to their family, that is something that's definitely needed. I mean, I advise you to think about it. What if it was one of your family members that you love dearly that was missing? Wouldn't you want the world to help you out? So come on, guys. The next one is a missing Florida girl. Sierra Wallace, age 15, was last seen in Boynton Beach, Florida on 10/7/2015. She may have traveled to Boynton or Royal Palm Beach. She's 5'4". She weighs 129 pounds, has brown hair with red highlights, brown eyes, and wears braces on her teeth. Anyone with any information on her location, please contact the West Palm Beach Police Department at 561-822-1764 or 561-822-1900. As I said, guys, come on. Let's band together and let's find these people. Dead or alive, you know, we pray for the best outcomes, that we can find these people safe. And I've noticed on the missing persons website that I go on that a lot of these people are being found safe. And I would just want to thank God for that. But let's help bring these people home safe, or at least bring closure to these families who shouldn't have to spend the rest of their lives wondering. Okay, we're going to go on a short break right now. When we return, we'll have William J. Hall with us. Stay tuned. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back with William J. Hall. William J. Hall was born and raised in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and has seen the Lindley St haunting on TV when he was 10 years old. It was a story that became the talk of the city and country for years to come. Bill is a magician experienced in researching the unexplained, from folklore and urban legend to fortune-telling, the pyramids, and other mysterious tales. His syndicated 1990s column, Magic and the Unknown, ran for 6 years in multiple local newspapers in his home state. As a magician and a past member of the Society of American Magical Psychic Investigation Committee, Bill knows the questions to ask, the subtle differences to look for when examining what a witness sees versus how what they see is expressed and perceived. Bill has vast experience in how one could haunt their house, as well as experience in how a false psychic could wow even the most sophisticated of spectators. The true haunting of Lindley St in Bridgeport, Connecticut was one ghost story that stuck in his mind. After peeling back the layers and obtaining more evidence than ever before, there finally is adequate information to find out what really happened at Lindley St. Hello, William, and welcome to info2rail, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Can you start out by telling our listeners a little bit about you and what you do?
Well, I started doing magic at age 7. Not Wicca, but magic as tricks. And so I was always a very curious child, and I ended up becoming a writer for several local newspapers and writing a column called Magic and the Unknown, and I started researching strange things, UFOs, pyramids, things like that, urban legends. And some things I would debunk, like certain ways fortune tellers, con people into money and how they cold read. And other things had, a lot of merit to it. UFOs was one of the first examples. And then, as I went, I started researching various kinds of phenomena. And it wasn't until I really did an in-depth investigation of Lindley St to where I really solidified a lot of my beliefs in the paranormal and the nature of the paranormal. And that Lindley St was a Bridgeport, Connecticut poltergeist case, which went around the world and had a lot of witness testimony and documentation, unlike any other modern case in history. And so that's kind of what brings us up to now. I've been performing magic over 25 years as a performing magician, so I know how to create and recognize illusions. I know how to haunt a house, that kind of thing. Although I'm glad to say I find less is of fraudulent nature and more is a misinterpretation or mental illness or things like that. So I think more of the fraud is now in the fortune telling and UFO kind of areas more so than hauntings.
So do you believe that a lot of these so-called haunted houses are actually haunted?
Well, it depends on the case. Yes, I do believe in the paranormal, and I believe in haunted houses, and that's what I've written about was real cases. And I think a lot of them are real, and I think some of them are not. Some of them might involve mental illness. Some of them may involve electromagnetic frequencies, which are very high, which cause headaches and change in behavior, and the kind of things that make you think a place is haunted. And it also happens to be, of course, one of the things that actually could call, the paranormal in there, electromagnetic frequencies. So I think it's it could be very confusing, and it takes a lot of knowledge and expertise to kind of separate the mental illness from the electromagnetic influence from the real haunting, and so those things all have to be looked at. But those are relatively easy to separate after talking to people or making a visit. But to answer, are a lot of them real? I would say, quite a lot are real. And, of course, some are mistaken due to other things, but it's not because people aren't, believing themselves or trying to, they're trying to tell it the way it is for the most part.
I've had experiences. I've done a lot of paranormal researching and paranormal investigating, but I have one that happens in my house, and I lost my dad a year ago in October, and the stuff that goes on in this house I know is him because it's when I ask him to do something or when I'm talking about him or when I'm really focused on him or something, I get a sign from him that he's here. And they're signs that could not possibly be electronic or anything else, since the things that he turns on are not electric.
Right. No. Well, the electromagnetic energy doesn't have to necessarily be connected with like electricity the way we think of it. I mean, it can come in through our pipes, even if all the electrical is shut off. But I'm not saying that. I mean, that's one. That's one part of it. There doesn't. It's not necessary that that those ingredients are there all the time. It kind of depends. So. Just like we often find water, around the area, but it doesn't mean you can't have paranormal activity in a house where there's not water nearby. So, it really depends on the situation.
I have a moon on my wall and it has batteries in it. And one night I was talking with my friend on the phone and it was just me in here. And I was talking about my dad. And all of a sudden the moon turns on and it has a remote that's across the room from where I was sitting. Well, it turns on in four pushes before the whole moon comes on. And you can't just turn the whole moon on at once. Well, that thing came on full force when I had said something about my dad. And at the time it came on, my 8-year-old came in and said, "Whoa, did you just turn that on?" I'm like, "Nope, but you can shut it off." And at the time when I was chatting with my friend, she was trying to sign into her Facebook. And everybody knew my dad as Charlie Brown. Well, his real name was William C. Brown. Well, she didn't know his real name, but across her computer at the time when that happened, she was trying to sign into Facebook, and it came up that she was trying to sign in under his name, and she couldn't. And she asked me if I knew that name, and I said, "That's my dad." And she said, "I'm not even typing in his name, and it's saying I can't, I'm trying to sign in under his name." Well, then all of a sudden on my computer, it flashed across and really fast, but bright enough for me to see. It said William C. Brown logging out. And I'm like, what is going on?
Wow.
Well, right around that time, it was only probably an hour or two later that her mother passed away. So it was kind of weird, like almost like my dad was trying to comfort her because he knew her. And it was like he was trying to give her a sign or say he was there through this because her mom hadn't been good for a while. But it was kind of neat how it all came together.
Yeah, very interesting. As I say, we found out a lot of answers, and of course they come with many more questions. But it's fascinating.
Can you tell us about the Lindley house?
Sure. That was in 1974. It was, it literally went around the world. It was a poltergeist case where that got very public because the family got the attention of an off-duty police officer across the street who they were friends with when they were having activity in the house. And he went in there and saw all this stuff happen while they were on the porch. Refrigerator floating and these heavy recliner chairs opening and closing by themselves, and TV revolving, and so he didn't know what to do. So he called for backup, and 4 police officers and 2 cars came, and they didn't know what to do. So they called the fire department, and 13 firemen showed up, 2 chiefs, and they were in 3 vehicles, and they didn't know what to do. So they called the fire department chaplain, and he came, and then the neighbors heard of the Warrens giving, they've been to one of their lectures, and they called the Warrens, and the Warrens came with Father Charbonneau and another seminary student who was 21 years old at the time, my good friend now, Paulino. So this whole thing escalated into this giant scene of emergency vehicles and people coming out telling stories of what they saw in the house, and hours later, there was a crowd of over 2,000 people outside the house, and it was just quite an ordeal. So the family had to deal with what was going on in the house, as well as the poor father, Jerry, with being ridiculed at work, as well as, of course, putting up with the crowd, and the police had to be there for crowd control, and they ended up barricading the street off the next day and having paddy wagons and dogs there. A really, really crazy poltergeist case.
That is awesome.
I'm sorry. And I was going to say, it's one that ended up afterwards being having over 30 hours of interviews done, including 8 hours with the police department, Bridgeport Police Department. So it was one of the most documented and witnessed hauntings in modern history, probably the most. I guess you can argue the Bell Witch might have been more witnessed, but, it's harder to put together pieces when you go back that far. But But this is very rare to have it documented in this manner. You usually don't get that lucky to have so many witnesses involved in it, because there's over 26 police officers that were involved in the incident, as well as 13 firefighters, there were reporters, priests, family, extended family, onlookers. So it was just it was a really crazy scene, not one you hear of very often, of course.
I actually have Paulino coming on Thursday, so that's going to be an interesting topic as well.
Oh, really? Yeah, he's a dear friend, great guy. So that'll be a fun show for sure.
The movie The Exorcist is supposed to be a true story. What are your beliefs on that? Do you believe that that was in fact true?
I probably haven't investigated enough to really have a super informed opinion, but from what I hear, there's a lot of doubts about that. As far as the child itself. So I would say, if I had to guess, I would say no, that it wasn't real. But again, I could be proven wrong because I haven't delved too deep into it. But everything I read seemed to point that there was a lot of conflicting information, and it looked like there was some issues with the son. And of course, we know that Blady, who wrote The Exorcist, of course, loosely based it on that, but the original case, of course, is nowhere near like that, and could have been disassociated behavior of the child. So, but I could be wrong. What do you think? Have you looked into it, or?
I have a little bit. I tried to get a hold. I know that Ed Warren passed away. I was trying to get a hold of his wife to try to get her to come on here and have an interview with me. And I haven't been able to get a hold of her, but I don't really know, because there's so much, you got controversy on both sides of the coin. You have you have these that say, yes, this did in fact happen and they witnessed it and all this. And then you have the ones that say, it was all a money-making scheme and it wasn't real. But then, I mean, the same thing with the Amityville Horror. That's something that I've looked into a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not really sure what I believe, because on that note, there's more that say that it was a con thing, that, the son actually just went nuts and killed his family. But then you have the other part of the coin, like the Warrens, who went in and actually investigated it. And, they actually had some paranormal activity in there.
They were with some other people, and the other people said there was no activity, and they said there was. But I know, behind the scenes, Ed swore it was real. So I think if it was real, it's actually classified as a poltergeist case, believe it or not. If it was real, it certainly, of course, is much different than the movie. They did have a setup for a poltergeist, though. If you look at the young child, and of course what happened in the house, and and the mother and father were not all together. I mean, they left their children to go on a countrywide publicity tour. So, they really did have kind of the makings of a poltergeist, if it was real. But I don't know. I mean, most people say it was false. Again, I don't know. I think, and that's why I try to concentrate on things that either I can experience or know that are real, or that have sufficient documentation, because otherwise you have to throw your hands up in the air, because I tend to believe that it's not paranormal until I'm proven otherwise, and I think that's the way it should be. I think people should be healthy skeptics, and there's things that I believed in for many years that. After digging deeper and having resources of the internet, realizing that they truly were not real, and that they were, urban legend that was cleverly done. And a lot of those things are in books throughout the country, and they're just simply not real. So That's why Lindley Street and the Haunted House Diaries, that house. One is an active case, the Haunted House Diaries, and the other being something that had just so many witnesses and facts behind it and documentation that made it where it was easy to see what happened versus having our evidence is one priest and we can't find him. Oh, we found him, but now he changes his story, and So when it's that kind of thing, I tend to just I don't have any interest in it.
One thing I've noticed is some people, I mean, I have a friend who her house is extremely creepy. Um, I mean, her son and his girlfriend and their child live in that house, and they have a lot happen to them where things go flying across the room, and there's just this heavy negative feeling in there. And I went in there and it hit me like a ton of bricks.
Wow.
I felt like I was going to get sick. And there was like this evil get out of here feeling. And the closer I got to the one room upstairs, the worse I felt. I was just nauseated and my head felt like it was going to burst and my heart was just pounding out of my chest. So what I've noticed in some cases is, sometimes when there is paranormal activity, it affects one and not the other person. I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder if sometimes things are real, but only certain people can feel the presence of that, specific paranormal activity where others just don't get the same feeling or the same outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. That certainly could be, the case, especially since we know certain people are targeted more than others and things of that nature. I think sometimes the feeling of feeling sick and that kind of thing, sometimes I believe that may not be quote unquote evil, but that may be a result of just the energy involved when these things are present. Although other times they certainly could be, if you're feeling complete negativity, then of course it could be, the entity itself, naturally.
Well, I did the research when I got home from there because I had to get out of there. And I got to the top of the stairs to that room, and I told her I can't even step over the threshold of that room. I got to go. And when I walked outside, it was like it all lifted off of me, and I was fine. When I got home, I did the research on that address, and the house that was built there before that, they had a man who they suspected was stealing and murdering children in that house.
Wow.
They never did have a chance to prove whether or not he did because he died first. The what I read on there is that his wife murdered him in that house for what he was doing. She killed him because she couldn't live with it and she couldn't take it.
Right.
So with all the research I did, I mean, it was almost like I could feel him not wanting me to get to the bottom of things, and I read and read, and I'm trying to find some sort of a ritual to read in that house or something to give those people peace, because the baby, I think he's a year or two now, but he is tormented. I mean, that kid cries all the time, and there's nothing in there. And when he's not in that house, he's not that way.
Hmm.
So it's a very, I don't know. My experience was it's a very evil place. It certainly does not want me in it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it certainly has the makings of that kind of thing, given what you said. Where is that located? What?
It's in Canandaigua. It's on one of the side streets in Canandaigua, New York. That's where I live, is Canandaigua, New
Yeah,
York.
yeah.
And she just said to me, she said it's so unsettling because she moved down the street with her boyfriend, and that's where her kids live. But she said it's when she's there, the things happen, but they don't scare her. She doesn't pay them any mind, or she'll say, "Oh, just stop it.
Right, right.
I'm not in the mood." And she said she doesn't allow it to you know she doesn't allow her energy to give it any energy. So, and I told her,
Very well said. Yeah,
that's important.
yeah.
The more you feed an energy and it feeds off of you, the stronger it becomes, is what
Right.
I've discovered this.
No, I agree to you completely. Yeah, yeah. It's that frequency that you're sending out, and by not giving it that attention, yeah, that's the perfect response to take away that power.
I know that her son's girlfriend that lives there, she lots of times will just pack up her kid and leave because she can't handle it. She'll just go down to her house for a while or just get away from that house because she does not is not comfortable with that energy. And I told her, I said, you have to tell your son's girlfriend that she's got to ignore it and stop giving it the energy. It's feeding off of her, you know?
No, that's perfect advice. Yeah, I mean, we find with all these parasite cases, as we call them, that it's all about that. It's all about understanding, that it can't have power over you if you don't let it. And, you have to change the frequency of thoughts that you're sending out. You have to understand and, start thinking of it in a different, not thinking about it at all and ignoring it, realizing that it's probably going to get worse before it gets better because it's going to, of course, just like a child, if you ignore it, it's going to get louder, or a dog or anything,
Right?
any of us, right? We all do that. But realize that if you stick with it, it's, you're going to send, it's not going to have anything to feed on. It's going to go away.
I don't know. I don't think this thing has any interest in going away at all. I think that's his house and that's where he wants to be. But, I wish I continually research and try to find some sort of something to read out of the Bible or something to help them. But in my opinion, I'd much rather just stay away from it.
Yeah, so they're still in the house then?
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
And yeah, I don't know how far away they are, but if you want to, after the show, if you want to email me their information, I could try to help them.
that would be probably good because I mean, I'm telling you, the girlfriend does not like to be there. But
Yeah, yeah.
is there has there been cases that you've actually looked into that you found out are not real?
Not hauntings. Most that I find out are not real are more of the fortune telling type, and the regular kind of UFO stuff. But even that, surprisingly, most of that is not, at least anymore. Maybe years ago it was different, but nowadays I'm even finding that much less faked and more misinterpretation. We just had one in our area that was the government testing, or the military testing, I don't know if it was a missile or something, some sort of vehicle. And of course, they alert the authorities, but they don't tell people. So people see it and they're like, "What the heck is that?" And I do believe the military when they say that they're testing something, because normally when it's UFO, they just say, "Oh, it's swamp gas," or it's
Right.
funny, but it's funny. They don't. They actually could get away with it if they said, "Oh, we're testing something," but they don't even do that. But yeah, and we've had cases here where people were demanding that a lake be drained, and because they thought a UFO crashed and it was a meteorite and it didn't crash, it went over the horizon and looked like it crashed. So that's why I always try to pull in people who are experts in the area that I have no idea about. Like if it's photography. I've got Mark D'Antonio. He's an astrophysicist. He's the audiovisual optical expert for the Mutual UFO Network. So he's the guy. If you think you got a good photo of the paranormal, I'd show him before it ends up in a book because he will tell me if it's a reflection or recreated, or he's the guy that you'd want to call for that. Just like if it was a UFO, I'd check with him because I never know what I'm seeing or what people see. So I am happy to say that the thought of fraud, I think, is a lot greater than misinterpretation. I think most of the fraud is probably by people who are in that paranormal niche. Whether it's TV or whatnot. I think that's where most of the fraud comes from, really. I think a lot of the people are they might be mistaken, but they're really honestly trying to make sense of certain things.
That makes sense. I mean, I think a lot of times people believe that they are experiencing something when in fact maybe it is, something else. I've seen a lot of of pictures in my life. You know, the paranormal pictures where people take a picture and they'll capture some sort of an unexplained entity in their picture. And sometimes I have to say, I think that's a double exposure, but other times it's very unexplainable.
Right, right, and that's why you really have to have an expert look at it. I mean, and I had Mark look at photos of the farmhouse in the Haunted House Diaries because I knew that even though we were in a place that we knew had legitimate, real paranormal happenings, that we're still going to be subject to the regular kind of optical illusions that you can get, with photos. So, it's important to still go through that due diligence to make sure that, what you're capturing is real. And to me, that's probably the biggest time that you would be mistaken is if you're in a place that you know darn well is haunted, and then you take a photo and you get something weird in it, you have no reason to believe it's an optical illusion. You're thinking, well, of course, I do know this place is haunted. But, even there, you're going to get your regular kind of optical illusion. So it's really necessary to get the right people involved. Just like if somebody's having mysterious scratches appear on their arms, you should get a psychologist involved. They might be injuring themselves. And that's happened even when there was a witness. Because the witness may not have seen them actually make the marks, and so, and the person themselves they're not putting on an act. It's part of the illness. Now that's rare, but and that's what makes it so challenging, to investigate this stuff because the onus is really upon us to eliminate those variables because there's so much disbelief and skepticism involved in the whole area to begin with. So, it's almost like we're held to, of course, a much, much higher standard.
When we're dealing with psychics and such, what are the things that we should be looking at to tell if they're actually authentic? How would we debunk them if they're not?
I would say you really need a trained magician who's familiar with cold reading, to be involved in that case. And psychic has a lot of baggage to it, I think there are a lot of legitimate people who are empaths and psychics, if you will. I hate that term, but, but it works, who could feel things, but when it comes to predicting the future or telling your fortune, there are people who legitimately get premonitions. But be very susceptible to people who are giving readings and telling your future. I think that's where, 98% of those are fake. The people like Von Prague and all the people on TV are just horrendous, and they're not even good at what they do. Which of course drives magicians wild because there's guys I know that run rings around Von Prague and that other lady, whatever her name is, it's quite popular, but I even forget her name. But all the ones on TV, and they're not very good. But Uri Geller wasn't good at key bending either. But you don't need to be when you're dealing with believers because that's their audience. So they're very good at understanding their audience, and they know they don't have to be skilled because they don't care about the people who don't believe in them. They're after the people who are going to believe. And so I would just say you need a magician. A layperson doesn't have the skill to distinguish that. Because there are very good cold readers. There was a guy actually many, many years ago, and I forget the book, but he actually predicted Reagan would get shot. And he was a fake. And he admitted he was a fake. He basically wrote a book of predictions. He was a magician, wrote a book of predictions. And he was trying to demonstrate how, you're not going to remember the times he gets wrong. You're only going to remember the times he gets right. And he actually predicted Reagan getting shot in the year he got shot. And he did it just looking at what was happening, And so, I mean, that's what most of these psychics do is, if I walked into the room, they look at my hands and they say, hey, that guy isn't working on cars. He's an office guy. They'd see how old I am, and they would realize that a person my age, with my kind of features, they read my face and stuff, and they would say, these are probably the things I'm feeling. Remember, psychics know that if you go to a psychic, you're going there for a reason, and therefore you get a problem. And so a psychic is a poor man's psychologist. Instead of me telling you my problem, they're going to guess the problem.
But do you?
So it's a game of fishing.
Do you believe, in fact, that psychics do have abilities?
Yes. I believe it's much rarer though than what you're normally going to find, and the layperson really can't identify either one.
I have a gift when it comes to deja vu that I can't explain. I've had it since I was little. The only time I get any deja vu moments that I've actually lived before is when they're actually going to end in a bad thing. And it gives me the opportunity to change the outcome by changing exactly what happens in the next frame of what I've seen. And it's happened to me a lot of times, and it's actually, saved a lot of problems. If I get a deja vu where I've been in this situation before and it ends in a bad argument or somebody getting hurt or something like that, I see it ahead of time and I can head it off by changing the next word said or the events that are going to happen next. And I don't know why I have that. I've had it my whole life. And I mean, to me, that's my gift. I can't see what's going to happen. Like, I can't just sit down and say, oh, you know what? This is going to happen in 5 minutes. It's not like that for me, but I do have the ability sometimes to be able to change events that would actually end in a horrible thing if I didn't.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
At first, it scared me.
I'm sure.
At first, when I was younger, I think the first time it happened, I was like maybe 8. And I'd had a deja vu moment, and I'm like, wow, I've been through this before, and I ended up really, it was stupid. My brother and I were doing something in my deja vu, and I ended up moving the wrong way or doing something. I got mad at him or something, and I kicked him in the nose. And and I'm reliving this moment, and I'm like, wow. And I saw it. I'm sitting on the top of the slide, and I'm thinking, if I go down this slide, I'm going to kick him in the nose, and I've already seen this before. And I actually fast-forwarded to the end of the deja vu moment at that time, and I said, oh, I'm not going to go down this slide. I'm just going to climb back down the steps. And I changed the event. And then after that, I said, you know what? I've had this deja vu moment before, and this is how it ended. I want to see if it actually works this way. And I followed through the deja vu moment, and it ended up happening exactly what I saw. So, I actually tested my theory to see if it was really deja vu and I could change things. And if I don't change them, they happen exactly the way I've seen them. But if I change them, then they don't.
Well, I'm sure he's very happy he didn't get kicked in the nose.
Oh, I kicked him in the nose after that, but it was not something I saw ahead of time. But, I mean, it's just strange things like that. Like when I'll have a deja vu, and I have 4 girls, and one of them will ask me to go do something, and they've asked me this before, but never have asked me this. I've seen this before. And I fast forward really quick through it, and I'm like, nope, if I let her go, then something bad's really going to happen. And come to find out later, had she been with that specific friend that I said no about, her friend ended up getting hurt, and she didn't.
Wow.
So I saw it, and I headed it off. And I don't really know how to use that to help people. It's hard, though, because if you tell somebody, I've seen this before and I know how it's going to end, they look at you like, I'm going to do what I want to, so get away from me.
Yeah, no, good point. Yeah, it's a great gift for your children, though.
It is. It is. I kind of deja vu'd my father having cancer. I saw it ahead of time, and I'm thinking, you know what, stupid, there's no doctor going to be coming to the front door to tell your father anything. You'll tell him in the office. And all of a sudden there was a knock on the door a few days later. And I said, oh, I've seen this before. And I'm saying to myself, he's got cancer and they're going to give him 6 months, and exactly what was said. And that's something I couldn't head off or change.
Yeah. Yeah, so often is that the case. With and without powers, right?
Yeah,
or
it's.
gifts, you know.
But had I, that's the hard part I don't like is when I do see a deja vu moment and I can't change it no matter what I do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, gifts and curses are very, they go hand in hand, probably. Yeah.
Now, is there such
Some
a
cases.
is there is it real that you can actually be cursed by someone and actually have that curse happen in your life?
I don't know all about, I'm no expert on curses. My good friend Shane Searway um, does say it's possible to curse someone, so I trust him. But I don't know too much about that myself. So I really can't comment on that other than I believe that if he says it can happen, it can happen. He's like the trifecta of the paranormal. He's had a near-death experiment experience. He's a Native American shaman, and he grew up in a haunted house. So he's
Wow,
like the trifecta.
that would be
But
awesome.
yeah, yeah, and he helps people off of trueghost.com, and so he definitely would know more about but he had mentioned curses and that it could be done. Probably not as common as we think. We of course, well, with a lot of the paranormal, we attribute curses and different things where we might be misidentifying it, but doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So
I was just curious because I hear a lot of people say that they think that they're cursed in their lives and that nothing seems to be, everybody else has things going on in their lives that are normal. But when it comes to them, they just can't seem to, you know, they feel cursed. And for me, I'm a big believer in God. So my belief is that if you think negatively and I think you can will things to be, if you continually to think that way, nothing's going to work out for me. My life sucks and nothing works and I'm never going to get any further ahead in life. And this is where I'm stuck. I think sometimes we think ourselves into those predicaments where we get stuck there from our thoughts.
well, yeah, you're not going to recognize opportunities if you're thinking negative like that. You know what I mean? Whereas if you're positive, you're kind of your eyes open to different opportunities. It also might be that, I mean, I could take my life and I can tell you like all the amazing things that happen, or I can tell you all the horrible things that happen, right? I mean, it's the same life, but it's kind of the way you frame it. So I think that, you're right, that goes hand in hand with the way you're thinking. So I think in those cases, people think they're cursed, but they're, of course, probably not. They're probably just in a state of mind where they're only seeing one side, or they're concentrating heavier on one side. Because I can picture my life as, an unbelievably lucky, successful chain of events and wonderful things, or I can see it as, a bunch of sad things. Right? It depends on what you emphasize and what list you make, right?
I think, yep,
Uh,
it has a lot to do, I think, with your frame of mind.
yeah,
If you see things as a learning experience and you still see positive, I think that you'll come out with a positive outlook on things or a positive, end result. But I think if you're stuck in the negative, then I think that's pretty much what you're going to continue to create for yourself.
right. And it is true that some people are, you know, have it extra hard. I don't think they're cursed. I don't think it's a matter of them having bad luck. I think it's just the way it is. It just happens. Some people do have it easier. Some people do have it harder. I mean, some people are starving and I'm not. So, so there's always somebody who has it better and always somebody who has it worse. That's, the nature of things. So, uh, yeah, it's a lot of it is state of mind, definitely. And it's a constant stoking the fire, right? It's not easy to always have a great frame of mind, but you have to avoid those traps of saying, oh, this is my luck, and you have to realize that no, it's just haphazard. It has nothing to do with you, and don't be dramatic.
Right? And that's a hard thing for a lot of people.
Oh, it is, yeah, and I find myself getting caught in that, and then I can say, oh no, don't be stupid.
It sounds
That's
just
not
like
that's not
me.
true.
Yeah. Sounds just like me. It's like, Sue, things happen, cut it out. You know
Right,
what?
exactly. You got to tell yourself, yeah, don't go there. That's stupid.
In cases of paranormal, like residual hauntings and stuff, the hauntings that seem to replay themselves over and over again, do you believe in that?
I shy away from that because residual hauntings could be disturbed, and actually, you can talk to Paul about it. I'm sure he has a lot more experience in that area. But I mean, I tend to go more on the quantum physics side. That, and again, I wouldn't bet my life on it because obviously there's a lot of unknowns, right? That's why that's the beauty of discussing and studying this stuff. But quantum physics, I mean, physicists, their guess would be that all these people that you see fighting at Gettysburg, for example, the spirits are not spirits of the dead, but actually living and fighting the battle in a different alternate universe, which used to sound like crazy science fiction, but, physicists now say, hey, there's multiple universes, and it's possible that these can, intersect if the conditions are right. And so what we might be seeing are not the other side of the veil, but that there are potentially unlimited sides of the veil. And that would explain why many times spirits think we're haunting them, because they're seeing us the way we see them. And it's just, we're seeing the same experience, but on a different side because of the intersect. And then other times, you can argue that not all spirits, we know that not all spirits are spirits of the dead, because there's been plenty of cases where they were verifiable living people. But on the other hand, maybe sometimes they are, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be one solution to it all, but I think quantum physics is intertwined in this. At least, again, I've been wrong about a lot of things, including non-paranormal things. So we have a long way to go with quantum physics, but it is fascinating where we are today.
On the magician side of things, you see people like, Chris Angel. And he has people fooled beyond a doubt. I mean, I've watched him, and there's absolutely no show that what he's doing is not real. And it just blows me away. How, not trying to give away your secrets of a
Right,
magician or
right.
anything, but how does a magician make things seem so real to our eyes that we don't even see the sleight of hand in any of it?
Yeah, well, there are numerous methods, but I think a good answer to that is by altering our perception. We're creatures of we expect things to happen in certain ways. And magicians are trained to convince you that things are happening in the way you think and then pulling the rug out on you at the last moment. And when that happens, you're unable to go back in time and recreate what really happened because you've been following your perception. So, um, and some of it has to do with memory. So, for example, our memories are very flawed, and magicians take advantage of that by summarizing what's happened in a trick and making you leave remembering something different than what actually happened because certain details are heightened and certain details are subdued. And the subdued details are naturally the ones that hold the secret of the trick. So, we're relatively easy to fool. We all are because we see things and we expect certain things as an outcome. We're always trying to put things in the context of logic and reason and things like that. And magic plays upon that by misdirecting our senses and our perceptions. And there's a combination of course, a myriad of methods for doing that. But to give you an example, I mean, the same trick, if you have a quarter and the quarter melts through the table, you can present that in many different ways. For example, you can say it's going through the table. You can say it's disappearing and appearing underneath. So by what the magician says, the trick can actually be an exercise in time travel. It could be a disappearance and appearance. It could be a penetration. It could be many different things, but the trick is all the same. But what's different is the perception. So I guess the long answer is, we play on the regular perceptions that we all have. But the main thing to do is to lead you down a false trail and pull the carpet out at the last moment, and then it's too late. You can't recreate what happened. And that's what psychics do. I mean, the goal of a fake psychic is to make you think that they provided the information when really you're the one that provided most of the information. So when you leave, you will think that they told you things that were incredibly impossible, when in fact you were really the one that provided the information. They just heightened certain things, subdued others, and recreated the memory that you leave with to be something other than the actual reality of what happened. And that's what you leave with. And I've seen this done many times, with magic, where people, back in Houdini's day, people used to walk out swearing he did things he never did. Or taking it up a notch, because at the end he would recap it, and those are the things that you remember. So altering your perception and memory and recapping. There's just a lot of psychology in it, and it's amazing because most magicians didn't know anything about psychology, really, not in a scientific sense, but these principles are very old and extremely effective. And of course, we have to remember, religions were started with magic. Ventriloquism were used in the old tombs. They had tubes that ran throughout the temples. And, the doors would open mysteriously, but they were all on, hidden openers. I can't think of the word, but, almost like watch the dials. And they would talk in the tubes, and the voice of the gods would, echo throughout the temple. This is the way religions worked back then. And it was very common for, magicians were poachers and thieves and priests and noble knaves. And, they were the right-hand men. And they knew how to... spiritualism was a religion that was started with an apple on a string. So, it really is crazy. If you get the people in the right frame of mind and you do it the right way, as a magician buddy of mine used to say when we were practicing, when we did a really good trick, we'd look at each other and say, religions have started with less,
The one that caught me by surprise and really baffled me with Chris Angel was he had a woman and a man laying down on a bench on each side of the sidewalk, and he actually cut them in half and put the legs of the woman on the legs of the man and vice versa, and they got up and walked around that way, or maybe it was their head. But I'm telling you that it just does not seem like somebody could pull that off and it not be real.
Oh yeah, and of course that's the goal. And there's people who have came to me and said, you're real, and I said, no, I'm not. And they're like, yeah, you are. And I'm like, are you serious? I wish I was that good, but no, And they did that with Houdini too. They, there were people who believed that he was doing real miracles and he was hiding it. And, he said, no, this is exactly what I'm against. So, that's why it makes me mad when I hear, well, Yuri was tested in front of science. Scientists don't know anything about magic. If you're going to go against magic, you need to have talented magicians. If you're going to talk about car repair, you have to have talented mechanics. You have to have the experts in your field. You can't have experts in a different field judging another field. And it really is sad that, like Dr. Joseph B. Rhine and Duke University guys, they fooled by some of these people, and it was really sad that people are wasting their time. They're trying to do something good, whether you believe that this stuff is real or not. Don't waste their time, and don't waste their time and money. But Uri Geller was kicked out of Israel and made a fortune in America. So, it's only in America, as my dad says, and that's that's what happens. And he wasn't even good, but it didn't matter. And, I know guys that are amazing at spoon bending. I mean, they're so much better than, Uri Geller's not even in the same league. But again, it doesn't matter. If you're not stating that you're real, you don't get that kind of, that kind of praise. I mean, I know a magician many years ago, sad, he ended up becoming a psychic because he said he was tired of making, 5 times less pay. So he became a psychic, and his income, basically was times 5, and he's much more talented than anybody else out there. But I'm not for it. So
people can actually bend a spoon, though, or is that just an illusion?
No, they can use sleight of hand and bend a spoon. Keys take leverage. You can't just bend a key with your hand naturally. But there were guys that fooled some guys from Stanford Research Institute, and actually one of them is a very famous magician, psychic, Banachek, and they actually bent spoons and keys, and they didn't even bend them; they changed the labels. The scientists were so entranced by they were so enamored by their skills that they made it so easy for them that they were able to change a label of a straight key and put it on a bent key. So, again, perception, they didn't even have to bend the key. They just switched the labels, and they're like, ooh, now, eventually, they said who they were and whatnot. But, people, if you want to believe, you're going to look for belief, which is, Houdini got fooled twice by a lady who was very good at doing seances. And the third time, a thought came in his head, and he said, she's got to be under the table. And that's when he kicked his foot under the table, kicked her in the face. Not on but he said that's the only way it can happen. And she was exposed. But so if somebody like him could be close to being fooled, just think what the person who has no knowledge of this art form that has been incredibly detailed and incredibly developed for centuries, they have no chance. There's absolutely no chance. Copperfield, all famous magicians have been fooled by other magicians. So, a layperson doesn't stand a chance. If you do magic, matter of fact, my favorite magic is when it's done when people don't know it's magic. It freaks them out. Because if you're seeing a trick, then it's one thing. You're like, that's an amazing trick. But if you don't know it's a trick and it happens, it gets very strange, And actually, there's a show on that now. I forget the name, but there's a show that does that, the Carbonaro effect, I believe it is. I haven't really watched it, and I think that does it, where uses magic, but they don't know what magic is being done, and it, I had one where you basically turn your finger around where your nail faces the other side, and if you don't tell people it's a trick, they freak out.
Whoa, I would.
And it's the simplest, stupidest. If you saw The Secret, you say, well, how stupid is that? But, again, it's our perception. So it is fast. And what that has taught me about the paranormal is not so much about faking things, but it tells me to constantly question things and think bigger, think more objectively, think bigger, make sure I make my list longer of what things could be, and know my limitations of perception, because even aside from, faking things, we have a lot of assumptions that we make, and those are the same assumptions that, magicians use to their advantage. So if it's true paranormal, it could be more than meets the eye, so to speak.
I always wondered because I love magic. I think I'm fooled every time. There's very few tricks that can be done that I can't even imagine how they just did that. Holy cow! And it seems so real. It's crazy. And
It
then,
is, yeah.
I mean, but for me, I thought it was a lot of diverting attention elsewhere. You know, in some cases, so that you could pull the trick off. And so for me, I have such a vivid imagination. My imagination's huge and it's exciting. It's an adventure, and so I love that stuff. For me,
Well,
I
that's
don't
a
even
wonderful way to be.
I don't
Yeah.
even want to know how they did it. I just want to enjoy them watching them do it.
Well, that's true, and that's the joy of it. And all us magicians get fooled too. And when we don't, we can appreciate the beauty of what's being done. But yeah, I mean, you summed it up perfectly. That's why I love the art, and I still get fooled I mean, there's always somebody coming up with a new way to vanish a coin or something like that. So it's fascinating, and all us magicians are on the same page. We love to watch and be fooled and entertained, and that's why we've delved into it. But yeah, it's just amazing how simple but complex the thought involved is within the development of magic. Because magic, unlike technology, technology uses advancements, in science and things like that. Whereas magic is more, most of the time, advancement of thought, which is really interesting. Most of the time it's not technology, of course, that has helped magic, but it's people with new ideas, new genuine ideas, and that's an unusual thing.
Can anybody be a magician? Can anybody learn?
Oh yeah, yeah. Anybody can learn. In fact, there was a very nice guy and great magician that ended up having a disease and had trouble, his hands and stuff. And he ended up putting out a book of tricks you can do without hands off. So basically, he had a book of tricks that the spectator shuffles the deck and does all the stuff with. So yeah, anybody can do it. What degree or type of magic you do, or what level of skill you achieve, of course, that's always up to you. But definitely anybody could do it. It just takes practice, like anything else. It's like, could anybody learn a musical instrument? It's the same kind of thing. Anybody can learn a musical instrument. I mean, people would say, oh, you've got piano hands, or I don't have piano hands because I can't play the piano. That's nonsense. I mean, anybody could learn. Granted, not everybody's going to be a virtuoso, but you can certainly do it and entertain and fool, just like many people do.
That's very interesting to know, because I'd love to be able to learn some of those tricks. Some of them fascinate me so much, and I sit there for hours going, how did they do that?
Yeah, they should do it. Some of the secrets are as fascinating as the tricks, because the level of thinking behind it is just diabolical. It's just really, it's crazy. Many of them, of course, are more amazing to the spectator, but some of them are. You almost want to tell people how they're done, because it's just so. The thought involved in it is just so amazing.
When you're learning to do new tricks and stuff, do you amaze yourself?
Oh yeah, yeah. When you do something in front of the mirror and you see how cool it looks, yeah. I mean, of course, you know how it's done, but still, that's the goal. Is you want to be able to see it and know that that it's hot and it's doing what you want, and that there are tricks that are just a lot of fun to do in front of the mirror because they have that kind of visual effect. And I'm a big fan of visual magic, especially I always loved floating things. That's always been my interest. Anytime you have something floating, I'm in. Always looking for a new refinement or way to do it better, or in a more interesting manner.
Do you believe that we can really float things with our mind aside from magic?
No, no, I don't believe that. I've never seen it. I've never seen any evidence of anyone being able to bend anything or float anything with their mind. I know in the paranormal things have floated.
Oh, yes, I've seen
Yeah,
that.
right. Yeah, but as far as people's mind doing it, there's never been any quote unquote real evidence of that. Any of the evidence that I've seen of that is in the realm of magic.
Well, I've heard of the telekinesis and stuff where you can move things with your mind and do all that stuff. So I was just wondering what your perspective on that was.
Right. I mean, I've never seen any telekinesis that wasn't faked.
Huh.
Yeah, I've never seen it. If it's out there, I'm sure it wasn't done with a magician there because that would not be wise for them to do that.
Right.
I mean, anybody who got within 10 feet of Houdini was out of business, so, um, and he wanted to believe. So I think, like I said, I've never seen any telekinesis that was legitimate. Plenty of faked telekinesis.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what books you've written and where we can find your books?
Yes, there's The World's Most Haunted House, The True Story of the Bridgeport Poltergeist on Lindley Street, which was my first book, and then my new one, The Haunted House Diaries, The True Story of a Quiet Connecticut Town in the Middle of a Paranormal Mystery, and that's on a paranormal flap. They both make great gifts, by the way. They're available at Barnes & Noble, as well as your independent bookseller, and also a signed copy you can get from me at my website, William J. Hall, Hall, author.com.
There's another one on your site that's called the Bridgeport Poltergeist True Stories of a Haunted House, True Tales of Terror.
Yes, that actually is a hardcover version of The World's Most Haunted House,
Okay.
licensed for school libraries by Rosen Publishing. So that is the same book as the first one.
Okay, I just wanted to get that out there. And
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. No, that's quite exciting that they wanted to do a hardcover and that it would be, marketed for high school libraries and things. So that I thought that was pretty cool.
Do you have a website where we can come and check you out?
Yes, that's at William J. Hall Author. That's Hall author.com, and you can find everything there.
This has been an exciting interview, and I learned a lot. This is fun. This is one of the biggest reasons why I do what I do, because I learn from all my guests, and this was absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And I'd love to have you
It was a
back
lot of
on
fun.
again. This was fun. This is the stuff that, motivates me to, this is what motivates me into doing what I do because I love it. What was the one guy, Shane, that you were talking about? I'd love to get in contact with him and have him on the show as well.
Oh, yeah, Shane Searway from TrueGhost.com.
Okay.
Yeah, no, he's wonderful, and he understands the mechanics of a haunt, so he definitely would be a good one to contact.
I'm definitely,
and a dear friend. So
I definitely will, because this is the stuff I absolutely love. And, I'm thankful for magicians like you out there, because you give minds like mine excitement and adventure, and that's the stuff I love.
well, thank you.
Well,
yeah,
thank
and
you.
And I'm glad I got to a point where I'm open-minded, because there was a time when being a magician, it's hard to believe in things. So it's wonderful to see both sides and to understand that it's real. And at the same time, we have to be healthy skeptics, and it's but we know that it's out there, and the paranormal's real, and that's important.
Well, this definitely gave me an outlook. I was never skeptical about anything because I grew up with paranormal around me all the time. There was not much I could do when there wasn't something paranormal happening that I just couldn't explain. Things turning on and off, lights blinking. I think when my dad passed was the highest amount of paranormal activity that I've experienced.
Right. Well, then you know it's real. You know when you experience it yourself, certainly.
Well, on Father's Day, our first Father's Day without my dad, my 19-year-old was in a room, and when she woke up, she's got a whole wall of pictures, and the only picture that was like flapping in and out crazy was a picture of her, my dad, and my mom. And I mean, it was going crazy. There was no fan on in there. There was no wind, and that thing was it was just like saying, "Don't worry about today. It's okay. I'm here." And it was absolutely crazy. So I was not the only one experiencing this stuff in this house.
Right. Right. No, I believe you.
It's fascinating, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And at least it's a good thing. It's it's not a scary kind of thing. So
I'm not afraid of paranormal. I'll tell you. You put me out
there
in the
you
woods,
go.
and you put me around wild animals or a mouse. A mouse is my biggest fear. You put me near a mouse, and I will leave the vicinity.
Ghosts is okay. Mouse
Ghosts are
off limits.
That's me. Ghosts are
Well,
fine.
that's
Bring all the spirits
sounds
you
good.
want to around me, but if you bring a ghost around me, I will leave. And that's, for me, I'm just at peace with it because, I feel that from what I've learned from researching paranormal, we're the same in death as we are in life. We're just energy that changes form.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, my
That's
dad was a jokester. He was a prankster. Everything was funny. Don't sweat the small stuff was his favorite line. And he made a joke out of everything. There's nothing worth getting upset about because you know what? Tomorrow you're going to wake up and it's going to be a different circumstance. And his biggest thing was, so what? It's going to snow. What are you going to do about it? So, he's still that way in death. He still does the prankster stuff, but his biggest thing in his life was to make sure that his family knew that he loved us, and he always took care of everything. I mean, my parents were married 50 years, and she never wanted or needed for anything. My mom didn't, and neither did
wow.
us kids, and he was amazing in life, and he's still taking care of us in death. So for me, that is phenomenal.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Well, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us, and I am telling you, this was an amazing interview. And
Oh, my
thank you.
pleasure. Thank you.
And I would love to have you back on here again because you're very fascinating.
Oh, thank you. I'd love to come back.
All right. Well, you have a great night.
You too.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everybody.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. That was fun, you guys. That's the kind of stuff I love. He's very interesting, and he has a lot of. He makes me look at things a little bit more skeptical, where you'd believe in a lot more of the paranormal or the folklore stuff. I'm starting to see now that some of it's just not real, so maybe from now on I'll have to look at things with a little more of a skeptical view. Well, that's all we have time for today. We post our shows on YouTube, and if you want to know more about our guests or our upcoming shows, please visit our info2rail webpage. All you got to do is Google info2rail and click on our Google Sites webpage. I want to thank you, each and every one of you, for joining us here at info2rail. And like I tell you guys every show, if it wasn't for the guests and you guys listening, I wouldn't be able to do what I love to do. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I hope to see you here each and every week, bringing you some great guests with some great topics, and we'll continue to do so. Right now, we're kind of in need of a new board, and a new microphone, so we're kind of, put that out there. So if anybody, wants to donate and help us out a little bit to keep us going, we'll be happy to do so. We have a donate button right on our website. Be very thankful for that. Well, may God bless you and keep you, and may his face shine upon you in these uncertain times. We'll see you soon.